It's a little known fact that genetics highly impact your sleep. For various reasons, your stress response, how you cope with food, the circadian rhythm, your internal clock of your body, understanding when it's even time to sleep, all these things are regulated through your genetics. And it's only through making the right choices that you'll have proper sleep, and it's through making the wrong choices that you'll have issues that a lot of people have. Chronic sleep issues affect 30% of Americans now, which lead to diseases like cardiovascular, cancers, obesity. These are all rooted in not getting proper rest, which is a time when your body actually recovers. So let's explore together the genetics that drive the various factors that may help you or prevent you from sleeping properly. The human body works in circadian rhythms, and the most well-known of those is the wake and sleep cycle. We all hear that we need to sleep 7 to 8 hours to get that full restful night, but how does that actually look like and how is it broken up? The circadian rhythm of the sleep cycle is actually broken up into 2-3 hour chunks. Each one of those gets you into that deep REM sleep where you're dreaming and getting true restful recovery. It takes you about an hour and a half to get into that REM state where you're sleeping and dreaming, and you kind of wake up but you don't quite experience being awake, and you do it again. Happens twice, that's 3 hours. You then do wake up and experience that ruffling in bed, getting out to go to the washroom, and then going back, and you do it again for 3 hours. If you've accomplished that twice, you've got good quality sleep in terms of the right amount of time. How deep did you sleep is a different question. You may not be doing that. For example, some people just can't get to sleep. They lie there awake and it takes them hours and they miss that first chunk entirely. There's some people for which they fall asleep but they wake up and can't get back into the second set. There's a lot of external factors, and this is where genetics come to play. What are you doing that's preventing you from experiencing the proper circadian rhythm? Simple example, lying in bed at night on your phone with that blue light mimicking sunlight and interrupting your brain's ability to know it's time to deploy the sleep hormones and put my brain into a restful state. Many triggers like that you can learn about, that you should be implementing to make sure you're getting that deep restful sleep and not interrupting your circadian rhythm. Your relationship with food can drastically affect the quality of your sleep, and it's through understanding your genetics that you know what choices to make. For example, carb metabolization. There's some people for whom it's a very difficult process and it will actually knock them out and put them to sleep. That carb crash that you experience a couple hours after eating something that you were never meant to eat. For some people, they're highly efficient at turning carbs into glucose and using them as fuel, and eating it too late, it may wake them up. So you have to be able to understand, for the different things that you're doing in your diet, what is the net result for you, which starts with understanding genetically how you metabolize all these macro and micronutrients. It's important to time your meals properly. It's important to plate your meals properly and ensure that the macros and micros match your genetic needs. It's also important to understand coping mechanisms and how you may lean on food and how you may binge or be addicted to foods and how that affects the quality of your sleep. So as you dive into your personalized diet, you'll understand and implement things that will actually affect the quality of your sleep, which will help you recover, who will help you avoid future healthcare problems. You often hear, I was so stressed out that I couldn't sleep. But why do you also hear, I was so stressed out I fell asleep? The same problem, two very different outcomes. Again, genetically predetermined. The way that we process stress and the way that we cope with it depends on the neurochemicals we have in our brain, and to what degree do we bind them, to what degree are we regulated for them, and how do we experience them. So when you're under that stressful response, if you find it's not just a coincidence that I can't sleep or it puts me to sleep, that's true. That's the way you're wired. And so it's important when you're planning to sleep to understand how stress affects you and to use that as part of your mapping. So as you explore your stress response from a genetic level, you'll know why it happens and what to do about it. That allows you to implement the changes that allow you to sleep better, will give you more recovery, which will lead to better health. One thing we have to do to understand why we aren't getting proper sleep is to look at it in today's context. All that stimuli, the Netflix, the laptop, the phone. The reason why some of us can cope with these things properly and some of us can't is our pleasure response. Some of us are wired to be addicts. Some of us are wired to be bingers. What's the difference? There's some of us for when we fall asleep, you just can't put the phone down because you did not experience pleasure. Our dopamine binding capabilities are suboptimal, and so that pleasure response is hard to achieve, and so we keep seeking it and we seek it and we continue seeking it until we get that hit, and that's when we can eventually go to sleep with satisfaction. Some of us are the opposite, where you can't let that pleasure response go. You put that Netflix show on and you binge and you binge and you binge until all of a sudden it's 3 a.m. and you realize you didn't go to sleep. On both ends of the scale, our lifestyle choices are preventing us from getting that deep, restful sleep by preventing us even getting to sleep on time in the first place. It's important to understand at a genetic level how your neurochemicals are wired to know if you are overdoing it, either as an addict or a binger, to be able to take a step back and make the changes that are required to put those bad habits away, get the proper restful sleep you need so you have a better health outcome. One of the less obvious reasons why people don't sleep properly is actually their environmental surroundings and how they affect them. And there's two ways that this happens: during the day and during your sleep. During the day, you may be exposed to things that you genetically just can't cope with. If you're missing the detox genes, if you're not methylating properly, if your mitochondria is under pressure, and generally your cellular health is not the best, you may not be able to get to sleep or stay asleep properly because there's so much load on your system from coping with that to begin with. So it's important to understand at a genetic level how you deal with toxins, how you deal with the environment around you, and what your current state may be. Secondly, we need to understand what's happening while you actually are sleeping. Are you being affected by the mattress that you're sleeping on for several hours that may have toxic fire retardants on it? Are there chemicals that were used to clean your room? Is there something in your air vents that is keeping you up at night? It's important to understand that as you sleep, if your body is constantly fighting a challenge that you're putting on it, it may take you out of that deep, restful sleep and keep you up over and over and over again. So as we dive into your genetics, an important layer to look at is how do you deal with cellular health, detoxification, and apply that in the context of sleep. This is where you can guarantee yourself to get deeper, better quality sleep, to reduce inflammation, improve recovery, and have better health outcomes.